and welcome to this very short presentation on Vanify working with Chef. So my name is Carl Bourne. I'm a global solutions architect with Vanify, and I'm joined here today by Ryan Bonner from Indellient, who's going to provide a short demonstration. In this presentation, we'll show how the Venafi Machine Identity platform can be used to fully automate the key and certificate lifecycle from within Chef Infra, Habitat, and ShuttleOps. We have a quick agenda, so not too much on the agenda today. We're going to be short and sweet, which is the purpose of this demonstration. So who is Vanify, or what is Vanify? So Vanify is an established cybersecurity vendor, and it's used by many of the Global 2000 organizations. It enables world-leading automation for machine identities, or as some of you may be more familiar with, X509 keys and certificates. It integrates very tightly with traditional enterprise infrastructure, traditional enterprise applications, and cloud-native applications and infrastructure. And it ties all of that to certificate authorities. So it works with and it integrates with essentially all private certificate authorities and all public certificate authorities. And more importantly, for the enterprise, it provides oversight and control and policy controls and auditability. So it enables information security teams to control and manage the entire lifecycle of machine identities across all of that infrastructure. But what about developers? So we have developers, they need machine identities too. What we have with the Vanify platform is we now have the ability to integrate with pretty much all of the popular DevOps tools and technologies. So technologies like Terraform, HashiCorp Vault, Ansible, but more importantly today, and the purpose of this presentation, is Chef integration, which is fairly new. Quick overview of the Machine Identity Protection Technology Network from Vanify. You can learn more from our marketplace. If you visit the Vanify marketplace, you can get more information on all of the integrations. But the purpose of today's presentation is really to focus on the ability to interact with essentially any of these certificate authorities from Chef. Quick overview of some of the benefits and essentially what you get with this integration. So first and foremost, really keys and certificates, or X509 certificates, machine identities, become first-class citizens, and they become available as native resources within the Chef toolchain. You get fully automated key generation and certificate lifecycles directly accessible now within Chef tools. InfoSec policy, or InfoSec get to control policy, and they can control the access to the 40 plus or so certificate authorities that I mentioned previously for publicly and internally trusted certificates. And InfoSec get full observability and auditability. Quick conceptual diagram of what you're going to see in a moment. So we have the Vanify platform in the middle, and then we have enterprise PKI teams over here on the right-hand side, sort of controlling the certificate authorities within the enterprise and both externally. And then in the middle here, we have our enterprise security teams that sort of pretty much control access to all of the certificate authorities. And then we have our developers over here that are going to be using Chef. And you can see here we have Chef Habitat, and we're going to be looking at Chef Infra. And I think Ryan is going to finish off with a demonstration of the Chef integration working with ShuttleOps. So without further ado, I'm going to hand across to Ryan Bonner now of Indellient, and he is going to continue with the demonstration. Go.
Great, thanks, Carl. So I guess the first one we'll start with was Chef Infra. So Carl alluded to all the wonderful things that you can do with the Vanify platform, and with these integrations I want to demonstrate here, it's more about enabling the enabling developers to integrate with those that Vanify platform as conveniently as possible. So with Chef Infra, that really comes down to a cookbook that we've open sourced. The code can be found in the GitHub link on this slide. And really, it's just a very convenient way to sort of retrieve and manage the lifecycle of certificates on the Vanify platform. I just sort of prepared a bit of a local demonstration here, but in terms of how the cookbook operates, it sort of just provides you a very convenient Vanify helper resource where you can enter information such as which Vanify server do I want to connect to, which certificate name do I want to use, where should I store that certificate, things of that nature. And so just in a local kitchen environment here, I'm just going to run a quick kitchen converge, which is going to demonstrate sort of how that cookbook works in an example of sort of an Nginx web server. And so we'll take a little look at the output here as it runs. But really all that's happening is we're generating a certificate on the Vanify platform. We're retrieving it, placing it somewhere on disk where the Nginx web server is aware of it. And through that workflow, we now get sort of an SSL-enabled web server with all the benefits of Vanify managed certificates. And so we're seeing some of the certificate output here as the cookbook runs. Obviously, some of this might be sensitive. We have options where you can sort of hide that information. But at the end of the day, what we care about for this demonstration is that the web server comes up and we can take a quick look in our browser as well as on the Vanify platform to sort of see where the certificates land on the Vanify server. So it looks like that convergence is done. I'm just going to quickly open up a web browser here. This Nginx server is sort of serving on port 8443 here. And if we look at the certificate information, even though it's not trusted by my browser, you can see that it's using a certificate called Chef Infra demo.example.com. And if I flip over to my Vanify platform here, and I look under my Chef section, you can see that this certificate is managed on the Vanify platform. This also works for Chef Habitat, for those of you that use Chef Habitat. So we also have a Vanify helper for Habitat. And if you look at sort of the default attributes for that helper, same sort of concept. Just need to provide connection information for the Vanify server, which certificate you want to generate, and the rest is pretty straightforward. So if I do a have inside the Habitat Studio here, if I do a have svc load, I have this package under my origin. And really, I just load that Vanify helper as sort of an accessory microservice to my web server. And then when I go ahead and I actually load my web server, I can bind to that Vanify helper service to provide the certificate that it manages to my Nginx web server. And so what we see here is that we have sort of both services running. And if I look at the log output, I can see a lot of that interaction that we saw with the Chef Cookbook happening in terms of retrieval of certificates and things of that nature. And if I go into my browser, we can sort of see the same thing. This time we're using a Chef Habitat certificate, which is stored under a different folder under the Vanify platform. But it's very similar workflow in terms of the information that you have to provide to use this integration. And sort of lastly, I guess I kind of skipped over some slides here, but really the workflow you're working for with Chef Infra is you're using this cookbook sort of in conjunction with any type of web application or any application that needs certificates. In this example, we're looking at Apache. And in the case of Habitat, it's the same sort of thing. You have a Vanify helper package, as well as any sort of web application or application that needs certificates. And through that service binding, you end up with a very convenient workflow when it comes to retrieving and managing those certificates for your application. The last integration I wanted to show here is also related to Habitat, but it's specifically based on Indellient product called ShuttleOps. And really what ShuttleOps is it's a no-code CI/CD platform, and it has sort of tight couplings with Chef Habitat. And it really what it does is allows you to automate the provisioning of Habitat-enabled servers and services in a convenient sort of web interface that also interfaces with all the major cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP. And it does that in a very convenient and straightforward pipeline-based format. And so if I flip over to my ShuttleOps tab here, what I can do is sort of create a new deploy pipeline. And I can start sort of by selecting that Habitat package I used in the Habitat Studio demonstration, which was Vanify Nginx demo. Again, it's just sort of a demo Nginx sample web application. But if I add that to my pipeline workflow, I can then go ahead and integrate with AWS and sort of select very small AWS instance to use, select the port I want to allow inbound to that instance, which would be an HTTPS port. And then where Vanify comes into play is I can very easily integrate Vanify into that workflow and sort of provide that same connection information that we use for the other demonstrations. And I just have to bring that up. And so here we can basically see, we can choose our Nginx demo, we can bind it with our Vanify helper service, and we can enter all the URL and connection information for our Vanify platform. So in this case, we're going to use a certificate with the name Indellient ShuttleOps demo, and we're going to put that certificate in a policy folder called ShuttleOps. We can set things like renewal thresholds and how often you want to check for expiry. In this case, we'll just check every day. And once you save that integration, I'll just quickly come back here and select the Vanify helper. And I'm sort of ready to launch my instance. And so the great thing about this is it's a very convenient workflow, sort of from start to finish. I end up with a virtual server running in Amazon Web Services. It's going to sort of load my Habitat package in the format I described earlier in the Vanify helper binding to my web application. Yeah, it's just a very convenient workflow, and I get all the benefits that Carl described when it comes to Vanify. So this will just take a minute or so to come up. And when it does, what I can do is sort of view it in a browser. So Carl, I think we might want to cut here. I don't know if you can.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Okay, so it took a minute for the instance to come up, but what we can do is we can sort of open this instance in our browser, adjust the URL. I'm going to get a certificate of warning because I haven't configured my browser to trust the Vanify CA, but same deal as we saw with sort of the local dev demonstrations, except this time we have a server running in AWS integrated with Vanify in the same way. So yeah, those are the three main integrations I wanted to demonstrate today. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to Carl and I at the contact information displayed on the slides. Here's Carl's information, and here's my information as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and I hope you enjoy the rest of ChefConf.
Thank you very much, guys. Thanks.